So I was not going to bring this up. Zach said, bring it up.
No. You're already creating mischaracterizations. You said you want to bring it up. I'm like, sure. I'm not going to veto it. Go for it.
I said, well, we have to bring up my COVID. Obviously, I'm the second bestie to get COVID. And I told you offline, without the other two besties, I will just say I got it at a social function, period, end of story. You said it's okay to talk about.
Yeah, it's not like I wanted to bring it up. You want to bring it up, and I'm allowing it because I'm fine with it. So go for it.
We all got something at Sax's event. You got COVID. I got chlamydia. It's all fine.
Oh, you guys went to the downstairs rooms? Oh.
I went downstairs and I got gonorrhea. God damn it.
Chamath, again. You promised. It was a great party.
All right, let's hear Jason's accusations. I've been hearing about it all week in the chat.
It was a great party.
No, you've been saying it was a GOP super spreader.
COVID.
Jason, you were angry. You were angry and you were really mad at Sax because you thought he actually gave you COVID, even though Sax had people test. Every single person tested on the way in.
Except you, J-Cal. J-Cal, you walked around the velvet rope. And you said, guess what? I'm a bestie. I don't have to test. Yeah. And you walk right in that party. And guess what? At the end of the day, there's nothing.
One person that flouted the rules got it. Karma's a bitch, J-Cal.
Nothing better personifies poetic justice as what took place.
I do not place blame on anybody for hosting
around, you rant at Sachs, you make fun of him, you poke him, you poke the bear.
Republican this, Republican that.
Trump
it was a Republican super spreader. It was a GOP super spreader.
And then you go to his party and you run around the velvet rope and you don't get your test and you go in and you walk out with COVID.
Why should I have to test?
That was amazing.
It was really amazing.
I don't wait on lines. I'm a bestie.
I think he walked out with COVID because I think he walked in with COVID.
There you go.
He was the only one not to test. So who brought it in?
I did test. My daughter and I came to your wonderful party. It was amazing. It was delightful. And we tested.
Yes. And no, you didn't. When you got to the party,
100% tested.
You told us you didn't. You told us you didn't.
You were either lying then or you're lying now.
Then or you're lying now. Which one is it?
I was joking then. I 100% tested with my daughter.
Joking.
You were
telling the truth.
Bo was on the line testing with me. I had the bracelet. I tested 100%.
When I asked you, when you got into the party and I said, how'd your COVID test go? You said, I pulled my bestie card. I walked around. I pulled my bestie card.
That's not true.
That's true.
That's what you said.
That.
You guys are ganging up on me and making up bullshit now.
No, you said that.
Okay, I may have made a joke, but I 100% tested.
Hold on,
you
guys.
can ask
and
Bo.
then I find out the reason why Jade wasn't at the party, she was home taking care of 2 sick kids.
No, she wasn't.
She was.
One kid.
So
one
how
kid
do
has
we
had the
know
snipples for
that
2
it
weeks.
wasn't you?
Okay, we know.
I know
because
it was you, Fredo.
Told
I know
us
it was you,
that
Fredo.
she brought it to the
you
party.
broke my heart.
All right, here's what happened. I went to the party. I did test. There was a group of people that got there early, had tested at another event. They told me this. They had tested before they got there, and they told me that they had accidentally brought it with them because they were the first to have a positive test result. So in all likelihood, it was that group. It doesn't matter who brought it Omicron is going everywhere.
What is it?
Omicron.
It's a character from Transformers.
I don't even understand
Omicron.
that. What do you mean they brought it with them? If they tested negative,
they came from another location. They tested. They claimed they tested. Then they were the first to come up that next day with a positive result.
It takes longer than 24 hours to incubate.
You're right. So that means they must have brought it with them. They tested on Sunday and had it. They were at the party Saturday. But you're saying they tested
negative at the door.
They did not test at the door. They told me. They told me they tested the day before or 2 days before.
No, everybody was tested at the door, including staff, including vendors. There were people who were turned around because they tested positive.
Who didn't test.
Oh, you're trying to blame it on...
No, I specifically have tried to not say the person's name, and you're trying to include them in this.
It's going to get bleeped out. It doesn't matter.
They were all negative at the time of the party.
You hosted a super spreader.
They didn't get it till like 5 days later. So they were not the earliest to test. You tested positive. You had symptoms before they did. Remember the tickle in the throat? Guys, remember when he said last week he had the tickle in the throat?
Anyway, thank you for giving me Omicron. I am now fucking super, according to all results, I am now Superman.
Have you tested negative now?
Not yet. I did a test yesterday. 9 days later, I'm still coming up positive. I had 2 days of symptoms. Not that any of you give a shit, you rat bastards. You just laugh about my COVID. Nobody, at no point in this conversation did any of you say, how are you feeling?
Was there any chance of death? Was there any chance?
I was triple vax. I had done Moderna.
Yeah. At any point, though, did you feel like, oh shit, I may have to go to the hospital. I may need to go to ventilator?
No.
That's too bad.
I felt the tickle in my throat on Tuesday.
You want to know his symptoms? He coughed 3 times, he sneezed twice, and he prematurely ejaculated once. Those were his symptoms. Let your winners ride.
Rain Man David Sack.
And instead, we open source it to the fans, and they've just gone crazy with it.
Love you, besties. Queen of Quinoa. This is going to be our prediction show. Last week, we did, of course, our 2021 Bestie Awards. How did everybody feel about last week's awards? I think it was great. I listened to the edit.
Quite well.
Yeah, I was happy with it.
It was a fun show. I think we all got to kind of talk about stuff we wanted to talk about, and it was pretty dynamic. I thought it was a good show. I liked it.
It was like a greatest hits.
So we're going to do some predictions for next year.
Are you going to do a drum roll and a little scene as well?
Yes. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Here's an opening.
But it's got to be like flying into the future, like going through space.
Space, warp speed, flying through the air, wormhole, other side of the universe. Here we are in 2022. Okay. Biggest political winner 2022. What did Tucker Carlson's former writers tell you to say, Sax?
Okay.
It never ends, Sax. It never ends. It's never going to end. People were intrigued about what was the second battle about. That was the big debate.
Which battle?
Who knows? I can't remember the battles. There's too many battles.
About the beep. Which led to me writing the Google Doc about beep.
Oh, I know what it was.
Chamath and I deserve a Bestie Award for that.
Who's your biggest political winner?
Okay.
Come on. Let's stop with the inside baseball.
My biggest political winner for 2022, I predict my man Ron DeSantis will be the big winner. He's up for re-election in Florida. He won in 2018 with less than 1% of the vote. It was a real nail biter. This time, I think he's going to cruise to re-election quite handily and become the national frontrunner on the GOP side. And the reason is because he had the right approach on COVID. He made the vaccine available. He made the antibodies available. But ultimately, he treated the population like adults. He let them make their own decisions. Yep. He kept businesses open, schools open. And I think the rest of the country is going to come around to his point of view because of the unstoppability of Omicron next year. And so I think that DeSantis, who is much maligned and disparaged, will come out as the big winner a year from now.
All right, who do you got, Freeberg?
Vladimir Putin. I think Putin's going to benefit from the rising conflict between the U.S. and China. The other day, there was a call between Putin and Xi, and they said, and Putin called Xi his dear friend and said that relations between the two countries had reached an unprecedentedly high level. And I think that his position economically as a trade partner with China and as a beneficiary of Chinese economic prosperity will only grow as tensions between the U.S. and China rise. I think we're seeing that with some of his cavalier behavior with the Ukraine right now. And I think Putin will become a stronger player on the global stage, particularly as it relates to his relationship with NATO over the next year. And he's been a little bit quiet the last few years. He was kind of, I'd say, suppressed with sanctions and all the other nonsense that's gone on to keep him at bay. But he could kind of rise up again in 2022, and he could become a real player on the geopolitical stage globally in a more meaningful way than he has in the last couple of years.
I mean, you white guys love Putin. It's crazy. The whites love Putin.
I don't love him.
God, I hate Putin.
I mean, if you ranked Russia GDP, do you have any idea where it even ranks?
Russia GDP is probably.
I mean, you guys, for the amount of time you guys give,
it's probably eight. Probably 8.
I mean,
no, I think it's in the 20s or 30s.
Nigeria is like crushes Russia. Nobody ever talks about Nigeria has all the same inputs except they're black.
Yeah, they just don't have 2,000 nuclear weapons.
I mean, that is
the big reason. I mean, it's a fallen empire for sure, but they still have 2,000 nukes.
Yeah, the
position, the energy that it provides to Europe, Eastern Europe. I mean, Russia's geopolitically pretty significant.
Insignificant economically, significant because they have a madman running the country.
I don't think he's a madman, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of ink that's spilled about Russia. And I don't think anybody even takes a step back and actually looks at
who do you got for yours? It's not Putin,
rank
obviously.
In the world, guys. My worldwide biggest political winner for 2022 is Xi Jinping. I think this guy is he's firing on all cylinders, and he is basically ascendant. So 2022 marks the first year where he's essentially really ruler for life. And so I don't think we really know what he's capable of and what he's going to do. And so that's just going to play out.
You think he's the biggest political winner, really?
Oh my God. I think it's going to be he's going to run roughshod, not just domestically, but also internationally, because you have to remember, he controls so much of the critical supply chain that the Western world needs to be.
I think you're completely wrong.
Let alone
I think you're completely wrong. I think he's losing his power. He's scared. That's why he took out all these CEOs. He's consolidating power because he fears that they're going to win too big and then displace him. And he has massive real estate problems over there that could blow up at any moment in time. He could face a civil war there. I think he's totally isolated himself.
Civil war? They don't even have guns.
Every major country is removing their factories and removing this dependency. They don't even have any guns
there. What are you talking about? What are they going to riot with?
Did you not see Tiananmen Square? Did you not see the riots in Hong Kong? Are you not paying attention, Chamath? There's been many riots in China. They just happened to kill all the people.
Those were crushed. And that's
I'm not saying they won't be crushed,
but
he still will have massive amounts of, I believe, protests. And yeah, he'll have to kill people.
I think the bigger risk is that China gets better for Xi Jinping, but worse for everybody else in China. It's already worse for all the billionaires over there. It's worse for the tech industry. You've now got Evergrande, that whole gigantic debt implosion. I think there could be contagion from China next year. I don't think Xi's going to lose his grip in any way, but I'm not sure China's going to have a good year next year.
It's going to be terrible. I went with Ron DeSantis with you, Sachs. I think he's obviously a much more palatable candidate than Trump. And I think Trump is not going to want to run. And that brings me to my biggest political loser for 2022. As we segue, I believe this is going to be split between Biden and Trump, the two most important people of the last 4 years. And I think Biden is going to lose the midterms. And I think Trump is going to get destroyed with this January 6th thing and bow out and not run again. Who do you got for your biggest loser?
Let me add an octogenarian to that, which is my pick for biggest political loser next year is Nancy Pelosi. There's a red wave coming. The Democrats for sure are going to lose the House. That is baked into the cake. And I predict she will announce her retirement shortly after that. She has served, a couple of pretty consequential terms as speaker. She's never lost a vote, but with this whole Build Back Better, she forced all of her moderates to take a vote on $5 trillion in new spending, which they then lost in the Senate. And that's going to cost them some seats. So she contributed to, I think, her own downfall. What's going to happen next year?
Is Nancy going to come work at Social Capital and you're going to give her a bucket of capital, Chamath, to work with to try to play the market?
By the way, Jason, who's the excellent writer you got from Tucker? Because I want to hire them.
I got somebody from the YouTube comments who said they would punch me up. All right, I got Biden and Trump, Nancy Pelosi, and then who do you got, Freeberg? Who's your biggest political loser of 2022 prediction?
Mine's a little depressing, but I'm honestly a little bit worried about the United States' influence on kind of a global stage, socially, politically, economically. And I think that there's a number of events that could catalyze kind of a precipitous series of events that could really harm the continuing influence the U.S. has geopolitically. So, I don't really have an individual, but I kind of have the U.S. and its role on the global geopolitical stage.
U.S. influence.
U.S. influence, yeah.
And you said you thought there was going to be this potential tipping point, perhaps. Do you see that being Taiwan or what?
I've got a couple of them. I think when we get into our contrarian points of view, I'll share some of them.
Okay. Chamath, who do you got for your biggest political loser for 2022 prediction?
Well, look, I like your pick of Trump, which is not mine, but just to double down on this Trump thing, it's incredible to see that he's just a bamboozler. The same guy who's like, telling people to not take the vaccine, gets boosted. Then, when he finally gets outed with this other scumbag, what's that guy's name? What's that other right knob?
Sachs, take out your phone and go to speed dial. Just read it.
Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, that's number 4 at his speed dial.
Those two dopes on stage are like, yeah, I got boosted. What about you? Yeah, I got triple vaxxed. And And then everybody's booing them. I mean, they're just such...
Watch what they do, not what they say.
These guys are entertainers.
Dipshit on the alt-right.
Now, the great thing is they are phenomenal entertainers, but you can't trust a single word that they say. So, Jason, I think that that's a pretty good pick. My pick is the progressive left as a class, because I think these guys are being exposed basically for just being laughingstocks. They're quickly becoming policy jokes inside of Washington and in every city, state that they run. They just can't seem to put one foot in front of the other. And they've been run amok with folks like these teachers' unions who have really, really, really done a number on our children, which is now finally getting exposed in the mainstream media. And so all of these policies are just, they're not rooted in any sort of science or legitimacy. So they are, I think, going to pay a pretty heavy political price from mainstream voters in 22.
You know what they remind me of, those two guys? Like the old guys from the Muppets, Statler and Waldorf. That's what like those Trump and O'Reilly are. Okay, biggest
I think Biden can still save a lot of his long-term reputation. I think Trump's is done.
What would Biden need to do in 2022? Number
Back to
one
the center. He needs to disavow the progressives and basically shore up his party's ability to win back some seats and hold the line. And so
How
you're
would he
not
do
going to
that?
be able to enter some of these places with some of this rhetoric that, you know, he basically was convinced would be necessary for him to not lose the progressive left. There just needs to be a conversation inside the White House where they actually go through the cold political calculus of, you know, my enemy's enemy is actually my friend kind of thing, and actually go back to the center.
Yeah, he needs to pull a Bill Clinton and triangulate.
He needs to pull a Bill Clinton.
Okay.
And quickly, too.
I think it's way too early to conclude that the Biden presidency is over. I mean, I think they're going to lose Congress next year. That's baked into the cake. But he's still got 2 years after that to pull his chestnuts out of the fire. And if the Republicans overplay their hand and he tacks towards the center, you know, he can change his fortunes.
All right.
He can change his fortunes quickly.
He's down a pawn, but he could develop the board. I got it. All right.
I think the voice of populism is only going to swell over the next year. And that's going to be the predominant force that's going to drive both the alt-right and the progressive left. And you could make the case that, you know, politicians that are in seats should be kind of disavowing these, what we today are calling kind of extreme voices, but they're only getting louder. And the importance of kind of populist movements, not just in the US, but you look around the world. I mean, look at what's happening in Brazil, various European countries. I mean, it is...
Wait, so you think populism is going to have a rebound in 2022? We're all saying that we think it's fizzling.
Well, can I just say, Freeberg?
I think populism's swelling, and I think it's going to get louder. And
okay.
Low interest rates are simply keeping things at bay for now. And I think that's going to shift very quickly. And
but Freeberg, populism just means what's popular. And so I think there's a huge silent majority that's always stayed on the sidelines because they're not the ones that tend to have a tendency to complain. But when things get important enough, they typically show up. And so, you know, we may find that actually centrism is what's most popular.
I think populism is anti-elitism. And I think that there is a growing concern globally because of globalization that power and capital has been concentrated in the hands of a few, that the voice of the majority is we want to be shared. We want that to all be shared equally. And that's what's driving populism around the world. And it's in the US, you know, manifesting in different ways on the left and the right. And you'll see this in other countries around the world. But I don't see the fundamental driving forces changing there until and unless we have massive taxation and redistribute wealth in a meaningful way, or some massive shift in government. That voice is going to get any quieter. I think it's only going to get louder. And there may be perturbations between here and there of like what it looks like, but it doesn't seem to be going away. That's just to me kind of the underlying driving force, and it's manifesting with different political stuff right now. But
interesting.
It doesn't seem to be silencing.
Biggest business winner for 2022. Chamath, let's start with you.
Small businesses. I think what we are starting to see is that these monolithic, monopolistic megacorps aren't everything that they're cracked up to be. And so there's going to be a certain amount of lock-in that we will tolerate. There's going to be a lot of taxation and policy that prevents its further growth. And all of that opportunity accrues to smaller companies. And so in general, I think that if you are on the side of the David versus these Goliaths over the next year, you're going to have, or well, frankly, over the next several decades, but starting really next year, you're going to do really well. And the middle companies, so the folks that are neither huge nor are small, let's take an example like a Shopify, $100 billion market cap, but by no means is it $1 trillion market cap. Their success comes from enabling, arming the rebels. And so I'm a huge fan of this enabling layer for small businesses, both offline and online.
Who do you got, Freeberg?
I am actually going to go with Stripe. Stripe is a payment technology company based in San Francisco. Stripe raised money earlier this year at a $95 billion valuation. The highest valued tech IPO in history was Alibaba. They were valued at $230 billion when they went public. We are hearing rumors that Stripe might, bankers think that they might be able to break that. And so Stripe's IPO could be the biggest tech IPO ever. I think they've been talking about doing a direct listing. By the way, I don't know the guys. I don't know the investors. I don't know the company. I'm not an investor. So I don't have any information whatsoever. I'm simply an observer and talk to people in the market. But it sounds like they're going for direct listing, and we could see that become the highest valuation tech IPO ever. And then they will become kind of the golden child next year. And kind of be part of the top of the top.
What do you got, Sachs?
I got rise of the rest, meaning the parts of the United States that are not the traditional California and New York centers of industry and wealth. I think it's a trend that's been going on, but it's going to keep getting bigger next year. If you guys saw the net migration numbers by state, they're absolutely stunning. So, and it's the zero tax states that are just booming right now. It's states like Florida and Texas and Tennessee and on it goes at the huge expense of California and New York. I think that trend's only going to pick up steam now that SALT is dead. I think there was a hope on the part of many people that Trump got rid of SALT, and then the Democrats were supposed to bring it back, and then AOC rejected it. It's not coming back. And what that means is that if you're in, say, California, for example, with the SALT deduction, your effective tax rate was around 8%, not 13.3%. Now it really is 13.3%. That's a huge increase. And the politicians in California don't even realize that the tax rate has effectively gone up to the end taxpayer. And the quality of life isn't any better. We're not getting anything more for that. And so I think this exit is going to continue.
That's the subtle math that they actually really need to understand. That 500 basis points, you can overcome that if your life is 5% better in enough ways where you're like, it's fine. And the reason why people are leaving is they feel that their life is actually much less than 5% worse.
Right.
If the trash
quality of life doesn't justify it.
Your windows are getting smashed in all the time.
Safety.
Your kids are, depressed and need counseling because of the way that the teachers unions locked them out of school. You're just like, forget this. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
You got to add those two numbers. Yeah.
Here.
That's what people really need to appreciate. I don't think it's the actual effective tax rate, but it's the delta of how poor your quality of life has gotten over these last few years relative to the tax you pay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then one other effect that I think plays into this is the reshoring of American industry, which is not happening in places like California, New York. It's happening in places like Texas.
Sure.
Samsung just announced a $17 billion investment in a new chip foundry in Texas. Here, I'll post this. And there's a lot of things like this happening. So as we decouple from China and bring our supply chain home,
let's go.
That is going to be a big factor in the rise of the rest.
Love it.
And it's great. It's great for America because the wealth does need to be more evenly distributed. It can't just go to tech and finance elites in California and New York.
Yeah.
All right. I had two. Disney was my biggest corporate winner for 2022. Disney Plus crushing it. Parks raised prices. People want to go to the park. Spider-Man just had, I think, the number 2 or number 3 all-time opening in a pandemic, which is crazy. That IP is going to continue to work for them. Jon Favreau and David Fiolini, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Both crushing it with Mandalorian. Boba Fett, one of the great characters from our childhood, now is going to have his own Book of Boba Fett starting on December 29th. Is that today or tomorrow? Tomorrow. And so I think Disney is going to have a huge surge. I think they're undervalued. But my number one for this category of biggest business winner for 2022 was millennials and Gen Z. I think that they became completely empowered and independent. They shook off the participation trophies and their entitlement during COVID. They realized that they have skills that are valuable. They're sought after. They learned how to make money. They traded crypto. They did stock trading. They're doing shorts, puts, whatever on Robinhood. and they're just not impressed with people in power, and they increasingly want to build shit and make money. I think that those two generations have woken up, and I think they're going to be the biggest winners in 2022, because dovetailing with your SMBs, Chamath, I do think, and I'm seeing it across my entire portfolio of companies, you try to hire somebody and they're like, yeah, but maybe I can just start my own company.
Me and Sachs are actually saying a flavor of the same thing, actually.
Yeah.
Because all these SMBs aren't going to happen in New York and San Francisco. They're happening all over America. And there are people that are taking empowerment into their own hands. There's tooling for them. And there's opportunity, economic opportunity for them to build businesses on their own and basically just say, F you
and
to corporate America.
Nothing will build your confidence, that's to dovetail amazing. With you, Sachs. Nothing builds your confidence like moving from one city to another and that's a very empowering thing to do. When you're just like, you know what, I'm going to just leave and go somewhere else. I'll make it myself. So I feel like they are super impressive to me.
I really believe in this because the three of us got there in totally different ways, but I think it's roughly all the same.
We might be triangulating around a trend here. Biggest business loser for 2022. I'll just give it real quick. I think crypto projects that actually don't deliver a product in 2022 are just going to be lost. I think this idea that people are going to bet on things that don't exist in the real world or don't actually have applications is going to end. It's time for crypto to put up or shut up. And I think the crypto projects that do that, which a number of them are starting to, are going to soar. But it's going to be a big shake out there. What do you got for biggest business loser in 2022, Freeberg?
I agree with you, actually. That was mine.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I said crypto bubble will burst. There's a lot of scammy nonsense going on. 90% of these projects, are not going to yield value and fundamentals. And I also think that rising interest rates are going to affect the crypto market. There's a lot of leveraged trades into the crypto assets. Those will start to de-lever as these interest rates shift up. And as a whole, you'll see a large percentage of them go away or decline in value, but a small number will continue to grow in value. Just like we saw when the dot-com bubble blew up, there was a number of companies that survived. Most of them did not. And the few that did survive ended up becoming worth 10 times what the current market value is. And I think that that's still possible with these crypto projects. But I'd say 90% of them are probably going to start to blow up next year.
What do you got, Chamath?
Well, I guess I'm fading you guys, and I'm also fading implicitly Friedberg's pick of Stripe. But my biggest business loser for 2022 is Visa and MasterCard and traditional payment rails and the entire ecosystem around it. So I think that this is the year you can put on what probably will be the most profitable spread trade of my lifetime, which is to be short these companies, and that anybody that basically lives off of this 2 or 3% tax and be long, well thought out Web3 crypto projects that are rebuilding payments infrastructure in a completely decentralized way. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that what you say won't also happen, both that Stripe will have an incredible IPO and that a lot of these scammy crypto projects will go to zero. However, if you read the white papers of these crypto projects and you systematically put together a framework, I think you can be long those and you can be short Visa, MasterCard, because I think this is their peak market cap.
And for those of you who don't know, fading in sports betting, taking the opposite side of a bet, taking the opposite team, I guess.
Man, Visa's market cap is $500 billion, huh? It's incredible.
It's a completely contrived duopoly that doesn't need to exist. And what does
Visa mean to a young person?
And MasterCard's almost $400 billion. So they're $1 trillion combined market cap.
By the way,
that's incredible.
You have to understand that the canary in the coal mine here is pretty significant. The most important thing is Amazon, earlier this year, Nick, maybe you can post this, decided to just shut Visa off in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Amazon is not going to do something like that, in my opinion, unless it's a test of what they can do all around the world. And again, going back to this idea of arming the rebels, there really is no need today for all of these small businesses to sit on top of Visa, MasterCard, and Amex rails. It's unnecessary. And so it'll probably get developed in the developing world first. This is why I think, focusing in markets like Nigeria, to me, are way more exciting than talking about these fading Western European countries. Who cares?
Right.
This is where this stuff will happen. It's not to say that those other companies can't, trundle along for a while. But when I say, we'll look back in 10 years and their market caps will be materially lower, anybody in those traditional infrastructure and rails versus anybody in this new infrastructure and rails it will look like a no-brainer 10
years. Do you consider
the
buy now, pay later companies like Affirm and Upstart or whatever? I don't know if Upstart fits in that category, but some of these buy now, pay later businesses as being the alternative to the traditional payment networks, or do you think that it's a different business?
No, right now, I think what buy now, pay later is a rate arbitrage.
Right.
When, as you said earlier, rates are very, very low, so the cost of capital is low. But it again starts to habituate the consumer experience to, I don't need to pay these usurious rates to these 3 credit card companies to facilitate a transaction of money that I already have or money that I'm good for. That's the big idea, right? And so when you translate that into Web3 in a good project or a good series of projects, you're not going to need these companies. And so it's going to, I think, eviscerate trillions of dollars of market cap.
Well, not to mention, you also have in between these two, Venmo and Cash App, which are not crypto, but they certainly as brands mean more to young people than Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah, do you think Block, used to be called Square, is a good pair trade against Visa and MasterCard in this context?
Yeah, I like it.
I think that starts to get closer to the truth. My perspective is you can kind of short anybody who's public, because anybody who's public can really only be public or will go public because they feast off of this artificial 2 or 3% transaction fee. Everybody does. The companies you want to be long are those private companies in crypto that you can read the white papers of, whose protocols have utility, and who's building some element of infrastructure that replaces a traditional business. So as long as you can kind of build those things up, Balaji, for example, had a bunch of tweets this weekend where he was like, he has this idea for a mirror table. What is that? That replaces, cap table management. Right now, why is that important? Well, it's because it touches all of these really important KYC, AML, investing laws across all these countries in all of these places. It's just a very simple example of where the new company that actually builds that capability of these mirror tables will do so at virtually no cost. And so it'll have a 50-person team. And so they're not going to have offices all over the world. Their cost basis will be, an order or 2 orders of magnitude cheaper.
Let's face it, Visa and MasterCard became a tax. It took them decades and decades to have that power over folks. But I think Affirm does break that. Affirm breaks it because the people who are selling then decide, you know what? We'll give a little bit of a discount here to get more people to buy. Go ahead.
They were the classic network effect monopoly business, right? Like they got the small businesses, they got the credit cards, and by extension, the consumers on the network. And ultimately, they created these absolutely locked in networks. But as with all networks, complacency kind of drives innovation, and this fueled innovation that we're seeing is now starting to figure out ways to not just crack their way into the network, but to replace them with an entirely different model.
Last point on this. This is not one where I think this disruption happens slow. I think it happens swiftly.
Swiftly being 5 to 10 years?
No, like in a year.
Yeah, Chamath's point is really interesting because there are several billion people globally who do not have credit and who are unbanked. And so if you think about where this is more likely to come from, it's more likely to come from an innovative model in those markets that then ultimately finds its way into the developed world versus, trying to break apart Visa and MasterCard and go get these small businesses to switch out of them and so on. Today. So it's a really interesting point.
Okay, Sachs, what do you got?
I don't know if it's biggest loser, but the thing I'm most worried about is in 2022, the Fed is going to stop quantitative easing, or so they have said. They are, I guess March will be the last month in which they do this QE. So starting in April, there won't be any of this liquidity pumped into the system. And so I think the losers are going to be any of these asset classes that are heavily dependent on or have benefited from all this excess liquidity sloshing through the system. It's true that the stock market, I think, has already priced in rate increases and an increase in the discount rate. But I don't know if markets can fully price in a reduction in liquidity. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. And so if liquidity is reduced next year, I think that could reverberate through a bunch of markets, including, everything from sports cards, and collectibles, which have gone through the roof, to art, to crypto, to, maybe some growth stocks, and on it goes. So that's my biggest worry is what happens when the Fed stops QE. And
so the biggest loser is markets because of quantitative easing.
The markets that have to get off drugs, basically.
Okay, most contrarian belief. Sachs, why don't you tell us your most contrarian belief, since I'm sure that you workshop this with the contrarian Peter Thiel himself. It never ends.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a couple of them here, actually.
You want to wait and go after everybody else?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I don't even know if this is contrarian or just unconventional, but I think that all of this pressure on the progressive left will manifest in the chosen one, AOC, deciding to step up and run against Schumer in the primary in June of 2022. And she will lose.
Wow.
That's a good prediction.
I like Chamath's prediction.
That's a bold one, yeah. That she would lose is bold.
Well, sorry, just to give a little bit of color in this, like let's just assume that she doesn't, right? And she shouldn't. But think about where she's sitting. Build Back Better is over. There's an enormous amount of stuff happening right now where it looks like the progressive left is really going to be put under pressure, and it's almost as if she's really going to be the standard bearer, and she needs to do something quickly. Otherwise, she's going to have to wait until she's 38. She's another 6 years from now, because it's not unlikely that she's going to run against Kirsten Gillibrand. So this is kind of like, it may be a moment where out of her sheer frustration, she steps up. And then we will see whether Freeberg is right or I'm right, whether the populism is really around the left or the populism is really around the silent majority.
What do you got? Sachs.
I think that's a very good prediction. In a similar way, I predict that there will be a strange new respect for Bill Clinton in the Democratic Party by the end of next year. Why? Because after the red wave, there'll be a recognition that they need to move towards the center. They need to triangulate. And Clinton was the one who provided the formula for doing this. He dragged the Democratic Party back to the center after they were losing elections. And the other piece of this is going to be that it's already the case in polling that Hispanics and Asian Americans now are swing voters. And I think you're going to see in November 2022 that they go for Republicans in big numbers. And so the idea that the Democratic Party can just coast to election based on demographics, I think that theory is going to be imperiled.
Yeah,
and
I
so,
like it.
And so they're going to be looking to Clinton and maybe not so much Obama as as sort of the predicate they should be, aspiring to in the future.
I think what's important about that is those groups of people, I think, are offended by the free money, get something for nothing. They're hardworking immigrant people who have pride. They don't want handouts. And then you have this left, white, liberal maniac saying, no, you're poor. You need handouts. You shouldn't work. You need handouts. And I just think they don't buy it. And that's why I think they're going to go to the Republicans, because Republicans are hardworking and freedom loving.
And what was Clinton's big tagline in his campaign? He said that he supports people who work hard and play by the rules. That was that. So
great.
That's the message the Democrats got to refine. Right now, they seem to be on the side of basically drug addicts. I mean, people who
junkies
are contributing nothing and pitching tents in the middle of public spaces and participating in open air drug markets.
Yeah. What do you got, Freeberg?
And sore losers. Don't forget sore losers.
Yeah. And hysterical. Freeberg?
And hysterical people.
I mean, being hysterical, just never good look.
If you'll bear with me, I have three, but I couldn't really pick. So the first one is, I think, and I shared this on the pod the other day, I think we'll see the start of great global conflict. We often rationalize the series of events that catalyze conflict after the fact, rather than recognizing that there was emotional conditioning that allowed it to arise in the first place. I think we're in a state today where the conditioning is such that we're more inclined to engage in conflict globally than we have been in a very long time. I don't know if it's kind of the conflict meter or what have you, but you could see proxy wars and proxy conflicts that arise, sort of like what we're seeing, maybe something in the Ukraine, maybe something related to Taiwan. But this is primarily predicated by the fact that we've got kind of this inflationary environment, and the rise of populism will force the kind of domestic policymakers and legislators to say we should do something that's active and something that will allow us to unite our nations to go and get into a conflict somewhere, or more likely to do that than not. And so I would say that the conditioning is there to see something like that happen. And so we're not kind of thinking, hey, next year is going to be a year of war. And that's why it's contrarian. I think that there may be war that we're not kind of paying attention to today, or that will surprise us after the fact. The second thing is, I'd say China may solidify its position next year. And this is going to sound a little crazy, as a leader in climate change mitigation, whereas it's historically been considered kind of the primary foe against climate change. And there's a couple of behaviors we've seen come out of China recently that I think, number one, remember, China's a very rational actor. They do analysis, they make decisions based on long-term investments and thinking. They recently announced that they're going to build 150 new nuclear reactors over the next 15 years at a cost of roughly $450 billion. That's about $3 billion per nuclear power plant. The US is currently spending $30 billion building 2 power plants in Georgia. So the Chinese have figured it out. They've also publicly declared that they're going to be completely carbon neutral with their economy by the year 2060. And they're making the investments through these nuclear power plants to demonstrate that they're actually on the road to do that. And there are a number of other infrastructure initiatives that are meant to help them achieve significant reductions in carbon by 2040. So let me just point out why this is important, because right now everyone thinks China's the foe. They're causing climate change. They're the biggest problem. Imagine if over the next year, some of what they're doing pays off and everyone says, my gosh, China is leading the world in climate change mitigation. Their influence socially and politically will rise. And this gives China a very strong kind of position, on the global stage and with kind of people around the world thinking, instead of China being a foe, maybe they're the leader and the US is the laggard. And that creates and my third is very random, which is some sort of natural catastrophe. We never account, all natural catastrophes are very low probability, but very high severity. If you multiply the probability by the severity, you have what's called the expected loss. We always undervalue the expected loss of massive catastrophes, natural catastrophes. We haven't had one in a while. It's a very low probability bet for me to say, hey, maybe we will. But if we do, it's certainly underappreciated in markets today. And so when these kind of, black swan type events occur.
Did you watch Don't Look Up on Netflix? Is that why you're coming up with this one?
What is that?
It's a new movie about
It's crap. Don't watch it.
It's just polarizing. Let's leave it out for now. Okay.
Adam McKay directed it? I'll watch it.
It's crap.
My most contrarian belief is, I think this is contrarian, is that American influence and exceptionalism is going to soar. I believe
that is contrarian.
I think we've empowered this next generation. As I talked about earlier, millennials, Gen Z are ready to be independent, to build shit. And I think Gen X is going to start taking over from boomers, as is what's happening in this very podcast here as we start to hit our prime years as executives. And then all these boomers are retiring, as Chamath has pointed out over and over again, and they're going to pass down their wealth, which then creates a perfect storm of a ton of capital, a ton of energy, lots of new ideas, a different perspective. And the economy is going to boom. And we will prove once again that we're the greatest country and economy in the world.
JKL, you're not a contrarian. You're what we call an optimist.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll add to that.
JKL, what are we? Are we Gen X?
We're Gen X, yes. And the fighting over COVID, abortion, guns, social justice, and all this stuff is so exhausting. Not that these are not important issues, that I think everybody is going to move to, let's just start respecting and building and solving problems. And I just think American exceptionalism will be
all that happens in 2022. Wow.
I just think that is my contrarian belief for 2022. Everybody believes it's all
primary race. I
think everybody believes it's coming apart. I don't think anything's coming apart.
The whole arc of the next century in a year.
I think it's going to be a great year. Can
I give my second contrarian prediction?
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
Here it is. I think the media is going to pull a total 180 on COVID. Okay, so after pumping out COVID fear porn for 2 years, they're going to change their tune next year. Some of the things you're going to hear: we need to live with COVID; it can't be eradicated. They're even going to say it's more like a cold or a flu. They're going to say that politicians can't be expected to stop it. They're going to memory hole their support for lockdowns. We never supported that. And why is all of this? Because we have an election next year, and more Americans have already died from COVID under Joe Biden than Donald Trump. That's a pretty amazing
memory hold? What was your term?
Yeah, you've never heard of the term memory hole? It's what the press
memory
does.
Hole. I think you said hold. Memory hole. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But did you guys know that more Americans have already died from COVID under Joe Biden than under Donald Trump? That is stunning. Yeah, it is stunning.
Are you sure?
Yeah. 100%. Now,
his writers triple fact checked it.
Yeah, they did.
No, look it up. And it's going to be even more true
after this.
It's on
Infowars.com. You can look it up.
Omicron wave. Now, look, I don't blame Joe Biden for that.
Sorry, wait, why is that? Because Trump had no vaccine and Biden has had vaccines and everything else.
And maybe it's the consistency of the number of people.
Have you guys seen we've had a consistent, 1,000 to 2,000 people die a day?
Yeah, it's been 1,400 a day. So maybe it's just that consistency.
In the U.S., yeah.
I think it's because of the Republican states that refuse to do any mitigation.
Okay, let's keep going.
Look, I don't blame Biden for that. I don't blame any president of the United States. Nonetheless, Biden campaigned on the idea of he's quote unquote shutting down the virus. He and the Democrats claimed that they would be able to eradicate it. That was the entire basis for all these COVID restrictions. Now it's the case that it can't be done. Everyone's realizing that they're going to have to move the goalpost and memory hole ever saying that. And so the Democrats desperately need COVID to be over for the 2022 midterms. Therefore, the media will say it's over.
Well, you started to see it already because the media is probably scratching their head. They were the ones trying to force these lockdowns, basking in the glow of whatever press release the Centers for Disease Control would put out. And all of a sudden, the CDC just had to do a complete 180. And when they used to force 10-day quarantines for these positive tests and people with COVID, they just backtracked to 5. And why? Well, it's because there's nobody to work.
And the Delta CEO asked for it last week. And now I don't know if that's exactly true,
and
but
the CDC ultimately really is just in the hands of big business. And so when big business needs these workers to come back, and it probably pissed off a lot of unions who would have loved to have just had a positive test and stay home forever, the teachers unions particularly. Here we are. So This is a really tough situation.
Well, and look, and to be clear, the message that the media is going to deliver about COVID next year, it'll be the first time I agree with it. But it's completely dishonest of them to pretend like they were never in favor of lockdowns, and they completely inflated the threat and created this whole hysteria. And next year they're going to have to back off it.
But also take into account, Sachs, that this new variant is much less deadly. So it would be logical for people to take a less severe position on it.
No, hold on, Jason. We don't know whether there are more variants to come in the future that could be much worse.
But we also don't know what could be subsequently leaked.
So the point
is,
the CDC makes a decision, broadly speaking, about everything. They're not making a decision about Omicron. They didn't say if you have Omicron, because not as if they really even test for it.
I'm just talking big picture to Sachs's point.
The reason they shortened this is because they didn't know what they were doing before. They don't fundamentally know what they're doing now. They're making best guesses. And the problem with these best guesses is that they're inaccurate, and it forces enormous amounts of waves of havoc every time they make a decision.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Sachs's prediction that the media will flip. A logical person, including everybody on this call, because of Omicron taking over for Delta and being a natural blocker, it would be the logical thing to do. So in defense of the media, which I'm not apt to do, it's logical for everybody to take a different approach right now because Omicron is 40 times more contagious. It blocks Delta, and it's become the dominant variant.
I think that right now the media is confused. They're not sure which way to go. So, there's a high probability that they tack towards what Sachs is saying. But if you read the New York Times article, it was through gritted teeth they presented the fact that the CDC changed the guidelines. Yes. If you read that article, it was like pulling teeth.
What do you mean when you say the media? Can you just define that a little bit?
It's everybody but Fox News. Come on. It's the elite prestige media. It's the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, on and on and on.
Do you think there's a bigger audience with the aggregate of those publications you just mentioned, or the direct to the consumer publications that are happening on YouTube?
Of course, they're being disaggregated because of their dishonesty.
So does it matter?
Yeah, of course it still matters because they still have a lot of influence. They do.
And no offense to everybody on YouTube, but we haven't gotten yet to the economic viability where enough people on YouTube can cover the broad spectrum of things that are important, and then the mechanisms and incentives to amplify it. So, for example,
that's a good point.
We still need CNN. There was a woman on CNN, Nick, please post the clip that we posted in the group chat, talking about the incidence of suicide rates and depression in our children.
Super
and
powerful.
What happened when they were locked out of school for 2 years. Okay. And I am not going to stop talking about this because this is the issue of our times. These are our kids.
Well, I want to get to underreported stories as well. Jan?
Oh, for me, I mean, my kids hear me rant about this every day, so I may as well tell you guys. It's the crushing impact that our COVID policies have had on young kids and children. By far, the least serious risk for serious illness. But I mean, even teenagers, a healthy teenager has a 1 in a million chance of getting and dying from COVID, which is way lower than dying in a car wreck on a road trip. But they have suffered and sacrificed the most, especially kids in underrepresented, at-risk communities. And now we have the Surgeon General saying there's a mental health crisis among our kids. The risk of suicide attempts among girls now up 51% this year. Black kids nearly twice as likely as white kids to die by suicide. I mean, school closures, lockdowns, cancellation of sports. You couldn't even go on a playground in the D.C. area without cops scurrying, shooing the kids off. Tremendous negative impact on kids, and it's been an afterthought. Yeah. It's hurt their dreams, their future, learning loss, risk of abuse, their mental health, and now with our knowledge, our vaccines. If our policies don't reflect a more measured and reasonable approach for our children, they will be paying for our generation's decisions the rest of their lives. And that, to me, is the greatest underreported story of the past year.
And I don't see it being talked about anywhere. We talked about it first. I posted that link about the decrease in IQ points. Yep. And then we started to talk about it there slowly. And now it's trickling into the mainstream media where they're forced to talk about it.
And who's impacted? It's not rich kids.
It's
not middle class kids.
It's all of our kids.
That was a fantastic clip. That CNN clip was fantastic.
The poor kids are the ones who get hit the hardest. They can't do supplemental.
It's
they don't
not
have
just that.
Option.
Don't minimize what this is. This is every child.
I agree,
it disproportionately affects
hit. Yes.
The data was that it's disproportionately affecting minority kids, okay? And that could be because of the sociology of the parents. But Jason, you can also have rich colored parents, okay, Jay?
So I'm not just saying colored parents. I'm saying all poor kids, white poor kids who are in public school.
All poor kids.
They're getting hit the hardest.
Minority kids of all kinds. But frankly, the point is it's all kids of all kinds, okay?
Yes.
So we don't need to sub-segment this to make this issue go away and seem smaller than it is. We have literally put tens of millions of children at risk because of our behavior.
Yes. I'm agree with you, and I'm not trying to minimize it or make it a smaller issue.
Your point is that none of the smaller audiences or smaller new media folks on YouTube or their podcasting have enough breadth to really make an impact by talking about this topic? Is that what you're saying? That the mainstream media is needed to hit the broad base?
No. What I'm saying is very specific. The people on YouTube cover what the people on YouTube want. Okay, right. The people on podcasts cover what they want. They're all very narrow specialists.
You mean they're narrow niche?
Okay.
Yeah.
There is no set of incentives that then threads that together and then amplifies.
Right.
In the absence of those two mechanics, those are software mechanics and economic mechanics that need to get built in. What we lose is signal.
Right.
That, in my opinion, right now, over the last 2 weeks, is the single most important signal. And it is nowhere except for this one clip on CNN and the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago.
Because the YouTube, I just want to be really clear on this. Because YouTube
is full of React videos and video games, which is fine.
And the consumer,
but what it's missing is talking about this issue and actually holding people accountable. And who should be held accountable? In every single county where it was basically a board of education that was trying to shut these kids out, who stood up and who told that story? Nobody did. And if it was trying to be told, it wasn't amplified correctly enough. And so what happens is after 2 years of damage to all of our kids, tens of millions of kids, there's a couple of fissures. One fissure was on this podcast, which I'm very proud of. Another fissure was this one few-minute clip on CNN.
CBS. It was a CBS.
Whatever.
It was a Sunday show, yeah.
But my point is, these are the things that really matter, and we haven't figured it out yet.
What you're saying, and I think it's a really important point, is that as a YouTuber, as a podcaster, you pick your niche that you can hit home on, and you hit home over and over every week. But no one says, I'm going to broadly talk about the issues of our time and make sure...
No, that's not true. We do.
We do, but it's a small subset. But I think the bigger picture here is that I'm going to dovetail with what Zach
there's more than 1 million people a week that listen to this. We've far exceeded MSNBC's average viewership. We're probably going to pass, most CNBC shows and some CNN shows by the end of next year. So we will do it. But there's not enough. There needs to be more of us.
We're an opinion show as much, we're not a traditional reporting show, right? In the sense that go out, gather data and facts and present them, or do you disagree with that?
Not that they do that anyway.
I disagree with that. I disagree. I actually think we do a decent job of filtering for the truth. And the reason we're able to do that is because of our friendship. We can hold each other accountable and call out the bullshit when we see
because we don't have incentives. We don't have anything to lose, right?
I don't think there's an incentive here for us. But I want to build on something that Zach said. See, it is very hard for the media to hold this dissonance because they're saying everybody needs to shelter in place. COVID is, this huge thing. They put the death count, they put the case counter up. They won't talk about deaths in ICU. They won't talk about who's getting COVID because they have an incentive to get more ratings through COVID or Trump. And they took that. And then it's a narrative violation or it's cognitive dissonance if they say at the same time, everybody needs to shelter in place. This thing is really deadly, but we should send our kids to school. So they couldn't take that position, Sachs and Chamath. They couldn't take the position that, kids could go to school because that would go against, hey, everybody needs to shelter in place. And they picked, I think, COVID is this super deadly thing. Everybody has to shelter in place over children.
I think you're giving them way too much credit. I think what happened was they had a position to re-aggregate lost power. And they took it.
That's real sinister.
And they did not think about the true consequences. And it may not have happened at any one individual reporter level, but when it ladders up to the editorial board and the decisions of the people who run the mastheads of these organizations, they made the decision that currying and organizing power was more important than shining a light to do the right thing. Specifically, in this case, the thing that aggravates me the most is around our kids.
Yeah, I think they were going for ratings. But anyway, we can keep debating it.
Well, one thing we can say for sure is they created a hysteria. Whether their motivation was ratings or a power grab or political advantage, there's probably all the above. But the bottom line is they wanted to create a hysteria. And they've been pumping COVID fear porn into the population for the last 2 years. But my prediction, like I said, is that it all flips next year. Why? Because there's an election, and the way the media figures out what its narrative is going to be is they start with the election result they want, and then they reverse engineer the narrative that they think is going to help achieve that election result. And if it means contradicting what they said yesterday, they will memory hole what they said yesterday in order to get on board with the new narrative. That is what's going to happen.
I do think you're right, but I think I don't want to lose this thread because this has nothing to do with COVID. Meaning COVID was a symptom of this. But if you really thought that the organized mainstream media had the right to be, has a purpose to be on the right side of justice, where were they when school boards were stripping out, advanced placement programs for kids? Or where were they when they were shutting kids out? Or where were they when they were engaged in 8-hour debates?
They can't go against the unions.
Whether a male can be on a committee, because he's gay, but he's not, black. I mean, these were the issues that stopped our children from literally walking into the classroom every day.
Well, I mean,
those stories were not told, and they didn't happen just in one place. They happened all across the country. And this is where those folks had a responsibility because they also probably had kids and they didn't do a thing about it. That one issue for me really drives me crazy.
Let me ask a probing question here. We assume we're going to get out of this, pandemic in 2022, knock on wood, no more variants. What is the obligation and technique, the strategy to solve what we did to these kids? And I just want to put it out there. We don't have to answer it now, but I think we could spend an episode.
That's a very difficult question, J. Cal, that I think you need sociologists and psychologists and educators.
We also need entrepreneurship answer. And ideas, and we need to have a dialogue so we can bring them on. But if we're going to spend all this money on Build Back Better, how about we build back the 20 lost fucking IQ points that these kids have, and then we do something about the depression and anxiety they have?
Hallelujah.
Jason, we're never going to get there because the teachers' unions won't even acknowledge that learning loss exists.
I think we need to break the teachers' unions, period, full stop.
Oh, let me make a prediction in that regard next year. There's going to be a ballot initiative in California for school choice. And the way it's going to work is that I think there's something like $13,000 spent per pupil in California.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the right number.
There's going to be a ballot initiative that says that any parent who wants to send their kid to an accredited school can get a voucher for $13,000 from the state. That's what's going to be on the ballot.
Competition. Let's go.
I predict it will be the big election in California and maybe the nation next year. And I think more than $100 million will be spent on both sides of that thing. And I can't predict it's going to win. I hope it does.
This is a topic worth fighting over. This is something important to fight over.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's school choice. Because you know what?
Absolutely.
These guys pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. They slipped them the Mickey. They hoodwinked them. You need choice. We know this as entrepreneurs. If there is no competition, things do not get better. These school unions are complacent.
Well, let's make a resolution. Let's make a New Year's resolution because I think we all agree on this. I got approached about this ballot initiative.
Let's do it.
It's going to happen. There's going to be, like I said, a major ballot initiative next year for school choice in California.
Let's take some all-in summit money and put it towards that.
Let's get behind it.
All in Summit profits will put towards this.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's put I'm in. Let's put some money behind this.
I want to tell you just to more personalize this issue, because I really think a lot of people listening struggle with this. I entered the pandemic with rules. I had rules about devices. I had rules about, how much time they could be online. I had rules around physical fitness, right? I had rules around diet. And it all went out the window. And it became this thing where it was like, feed them the best they can. Sometimes they eat lunch with us. Sometimes they have to eat lunch by themselves because I'm stuck on some stupid Zoom, back to back in these dumb meetings because these kids aren't at school. Their only way to interact with their friends became video games like Fortnite, where they could at least talk to their friends.
Yep.
But then it became an addiction where they were doing it for hours and hours.
Yep.
And now I'm trying to, and they gained weight because they weren't physically active. And I am trying to unwind, as is Nat, as is my ex-wife. We're doing it together as a team. It is so hard.
Absolutely hard.
Yeah. So hard. And
these
then
are addictions.
I think, what about all these people who don't have the access to the resources that I have to try to unwind this? And then what happens is I send my kids to this school and, they may have a headache. Guess what? They get sent home. And then their brother and sister have to get sent home too, until you can test and be COVID negative for a day in a row. And so there's yet another day of school loss.
Totally
and
nuts.
And then it's like, this is supposed to be one of the best schools in the country. It's not.
Totally
And then
nuts.
I think, what is every other school like then? If this is what my children have to deal with.
I think we should have this as a major theme for 2022 for the pod. I think it's a very important
We need to hold
topic.
educators and teachers unions accountable.
Absolutely.
School boards accountable all around the country to fix this. This is your responsibility. You need to fix it.
Listen, we held police officers responsible in the last year or two. We've seen this, policing being really like a spotlight put on it. Well, let's put that same spotlight on teachers and administrators and schools.
They'll never do it. They'll never do it without competition. That's the only way to hold. That's the only way to hold their feet to the fire.
You know what? What I learned, Chamath, to build on what you said, was I just decided to get a teacher, and obviously I have the means to do it. I know most people don't. I certainly didn't have it growing up. We could barely, afford to exist. But I think homeschooling is a viable option. So with that $13K, I can tell you 5 parents who are in an underprivileged area can take that 5 times 13 and take that, what is that, $65K, and put it together. And for $65K, they can hire a teacher and they can do a better job with those parents and a teacher for those 5 kids. I guarantee it. So let's go to best performing asset of 2022. What do you got, Chamath?
This is simple. This will be battery metals, lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite. Put them in a basket.
Like it.
You can be along these things, and I think you're going to
rapid fire Sachs. What do you got? Best performing asset.
I just said Series A venture because it's pretty unoriginal. It's what I do. I think growth got a little bit overfunded and overheated, and I think the seed stage also. There were so many new seed investors. Again, it might have been partially because of excess liquidity. So Series A is still the choke point, and I think it's still the best area to invest in. Innovation's not going to stop. There's going to be great Series A investments next year.
I also picked early stage startups because that's where the magic happens. I picked early stage, like right before Series A. I think SPACing, direct listings, raising money, people coming down to do the Series Bs, all of that is creating a pull for more startups. And the founders are getting very sophisticated in terms of finding product market fit and scaling globally. Earlier, and that's what's creating these great big outcomes, whether it was Uber or Facebook, both figuring out, and Airbnb, how to go global quickly. So my choice for best performing asset of 2022 is still early stage startups. Freeberg, what do you got?
Obviously, best performing asset in terms of a multiples basis, you're never going to beat seed stage investing, certainly. But I tried to highlight and continue my kind of contrarian bet that we're going to see increased global conflict next year, again, driven by, incumbents trying to hold on to political office and increase inflation and fueling economic growth and the American response to China. So in a world of increased global conflict, I think assets that do really well are energy commodities and energy stocks. I recently made a big bet on energy stocks, defense stocks, and it used to be gold. It could be the case that Bitcoin, sees a role as being a defensive position in portfolios in a world of war and conflict. So those are my kind of macro themes for asset.
Most anticipated trend of 2022. What do you got, Chamath? A trend you're anticipating in 2022?
Peer-to-peer payments, the destruction of traditional rails. It will come out of Africa.
Great. Sachs, what do you got?
This is where I had the civil war between progressives and pragmatic liberals. So building on what Chamath said, you're already seeing this in the feud between London Breed and Chesa Boudin. That is really going to, I think, blossom next year. We have not heard the last of that. You saw it in Philadelphia where the mayor, Michael Nutter, took on Larry Krasner. I think you're going to see it in New York City between Eric Adams and these Manhattan elites. And you also saw it in Washington, D.C., where the progressives were blaming Manchin for, losing the Build Back Better. So this is a civil war that's going to continue. And what Chamath predicted with AOC versus Schumer would certainly play into that. So it's grab the popcorn. It is the trend I'm anticipating the most.
All right, there you go. Do you anticipate a similar trend with like the alt-right Trumpians and DeSantis and that kind of thing breaking up? How do you see that playing out?
Not yet, because Trump isn't on the ballot in 2022. So I actually think the Republican Party is going to be surprisingly united in 2022. I think where the trouble might come in is when we have a Republican primary in 2023. And especially if Trump runs, then, all hell's going to break loose. So
who are the two people who would be most viable against Trump in that 2023? Ron DeSantis and Ted Cruz?
Nikki Haley.
That's going to be fireworks. Freeberg, what do you got? Anticipated trend?
My biggest anticipated trend for 2022 is going to be a gold rush in biotech into what I think will become the cover story on magazines throughout the year, that humans have discovered the fountain of youth. And this will arise from these investments in what are called Yamanaka factor-based cell reprogramming methods. I've talked about this on the pod in the past. A few years ago, scientists identified that 4 chemicals could trigger gene expression in cells and get those cells to effectively revert to being stem cells. And more recently demonstrated that using lower amounts of those chemicals and other what are called kind of epigenetic factors can trigger partial cell reprogramming, which causes cells in the body to act youthful. As a result of those discoveries, an absolute gold rush is now underway. More recently, Yuri Milner, Jeff Bezos, Arch, and others put $1 billion to seed a new company called Altos Labs to pursue therapeutics in this area. Google has individually funded a company called Calico, led by Art Levinson, the former founder and CEO of Genentech. And just recently, Blake Byers and Brian Armstrong announced their new company called New Limit with $100 million of their own personal capital. All of these companies are pursuing the same effort, which is basically causing cells to be youthful, to regenerate in a youthful way. And as a result, you see kind of organs and systems in the body act more healthily. And there will be magazine covers and, 60 Minutes article stories and all sorts of stuff will start to happen in 2022 saying, oh my gosh, because the amount of money that's gone in this year is going to cause breakthroughs and discoveries to start to get published about next year. And when that starts to happen and the media and the PR cycles start to kick up, you'll see this become the year of Yamanaka factor-based reprogramming. And everyone's saying it's going to be the biggest gold rush in biotech since recombinant DNA was used by Genentech in the 80s and 90s.
All right. And I had most anticipated trend of 2022 being the accredited investor laws are going to change and evolve. And it might just be you take a test and you're now accredited. It doesn't matter if you won the lottery or you make $200,000 a year. And a legal crypto framework is going to happen, I think, at the same time. So those regulations combined are going to empower really interesting capital formation on a global basis, whether it's running a syndicate with everybody in the world, including non-accredited investors or DAOs, or those two things merging, or as Balaji is talking about, a cap table over here that's mirrored on a blockchain at the same time, and people being able to trade their interest in Chamath's fund or Sachs's fund or one of my syndicates with tokens on the internet. And that could become
that's pretty cool.
A major unlock. Where, if you were in...
I don't have a fund. I run a meager family office.
Well, if you were in your earlier funds and there was still stuff trickling to Social Capital 3, the people who have that could sell it back to you or sell it to each other if they wanted to get liquidity. And that's going to be super interesting, especially if it can happen just globally, where some person in China decides they want to have access to U.S. Funds, RLPs could just start selling if it was structured that way. Most anticipated film, TV series, media, yada yada for 2022. What do you got? Yellowstone season 9, Sax?
So
I watched the first 2 episodes. It's really great. I mean, you forget what a great actor, what's his name is?
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner is a great actor.
Yes. Yellowstone is great. I'll be watching next season. But what I had down here is Thor Ragnarok. The writer-director Taika Waititi is back. If you saw the last Thor movie.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, Ragnarok was the last one. The new one is called Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
And, Thor went from being, I think, one of the most boring Marvel characters in the first 2 movies to being one of the funniest and, most fun in his last movie. So I think that sequel will be really good. And then the other one is they're doing a prequel show for Game of Thrones called House of the Dragon. I'm going to have to watch that. And then the Star Wars show I'm looking forward to most would be the Obi-Wan Kenobi show with Ewan McGregor. So
yes,
that
and
looks
Anakin. It's based on the Clone Wars. And I had as well the Obi-Wan show, the Boba Fett show, and the Mandalorian shows all coming back are going to be absolutely bonkers. And then there's also this Token series that's coming out, the prequel, I think, that Amazon spending $1 billion on. And I think that's landing in 2022. What do you got, Chamath?
It is the All In Summit in May in Miami. And the birth of All In Media. So I think that we, by the end of 2022, will have published content, written content, not necessarily by us, but other forms of media interaction that get the truth out to a large swath of humanity.
Here we go.
Is this moving beyond just a couple of besties doing a podcast during lockdown?
Yeah.
What?
Wait, so All In Media, is that a new acronym? AIM?
All In Media? AIM? Wow, AIM. Well, what are we doing? Should we buy like a cable channel and just go 24 hours?
The AIM is the truth.
AIM Media.
AIM Media. Okay, there you go. I didn't even know. This is news to the rest of us, but Chamath is building the media, bro. Okay, here we go.
Who are we going to hire?
Tucker.
There'll be no shortage of folks who will want to come out of the woodwork to work with us on this. And I think the goal should just be to make sure we figure out what the real North Star is so that we never deviate. And part of the biggest things that we did, guys, was not trying to hustle for some few, shekels here or there, which was
like
stupid.
J-Cal wanted to.
What are you talking about? I said
we're going to talk in a minute about the plan for the summer.
The purity of not wrapping this thing with crappy ads and all kinds of nonsense is we've never lost our way. We don't need some stupid deal for some crappy media company. We all have independent ways in which we can monetize our lives and our hard work. And so we should come to this to always tell the truth.
I think that's one of the great innovations and decisions that you championed was not putting ads on it. I hear it all the time from people.
I mean, we're saving you from yourself, Jake.
It's an interesting idea where
media's advertising basis.
If you have a media business that's not driven by advertising dollars and not driven by trying to maximize page views and clicks and visits, then it completely changes the equation of what's possible. I think this was part of the idea of what publicly funded media was supposed to be, but it obviously got, maybe a little bit too far afield. It was just too.
Well, then they started adding ads. I don't know if you remember that. So, they lost some funding and they're like, okay, we're going to go for sponsorships. They're not ads, they're sponsorships. And
so you're saying we're the new PBS?
No, it's something different. I mean, we do this without any expectation of financial reward. We do it because we enjoy it. And so.
Well, except for you, J-Cal. You've been.
No, I mean, I have other things that make money. Thank you very much. J-Cal's doing pretty fucking good right now.
Poke the bear!
J-Cal's doing okay right
you're
now.
clubbing the baby seal now.
9,500 members at thesyndicate.com. Boop, plug, boop. SaaS Syndicate just did our first deal. Boop.
I didn't know we were doing this category.
Downton Abbey season 16 of Downton Abbey.
He doesn't watch TV. He doesn't have any.
I would like to watch reruns of Doctor Who.
What BBC show that nobody watches are you going to recommend?
Doesn't matter. I mean, come on.
What show from Finland with subtitles?
I don't know. I spend a lot of time watching like esoteric videos and stuff I find on YouTube. I really think it's so interesting. It's such a different way of consuming media.
Just tell us what video game you're playing.
Wes Anderson is putting out a porno.
I was watching this Paul Thomas Anderson, and it's so cinematographic. It's like looking at a painting.
Shot will be of a vernacular going up and down.
I felt like I was in the Louvre watching this movie. All right, what video game are you playing? I called Freeberg on the phone to talk him off a ledge when he was going crazy on the group chat, and he's like, I can't talk him on a video game. What video game?
I was actually playing a video game by Annapurna Interactive, which is Larry Ellison's daughter's media production company. And apparently, I didn't know this, they had a video game arm. And the video games are, and the game I was playing was called Maquette. And you kind of have this like interesting movie like poetic experience as you play the game. So it's not really just designed to be action packed. And I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting new way of entertaining oneself. Okay. We can move on.
It was highly stimulating.
She made a simulation of a biology lab, and you actually get different beaker sizes, and you have different subproteins that you start with.
You get to buy all of these lab equipment you want, but it needs a virtual currency.
It's kind of like a simulation. It's like The Sims, but
you must first mine it. And the way that you mine is by solving mathematical equations.
I made a cruelty-free fish device dish in my laboratory because of the genocide of fish. That was a little controversial take last week. I got DMs from people. That was a spicy take, Freeberg. Did you get any blowback from that spicy take last week? The spiciest of the
I did. I'm actually going to respond to everyone that sent me a note directly.
Was it really? Because people were like, "You're."
Well, I think here's the thing. The comment I made that I think really triggered people was I said that animal agriculture is worse than human slavery, and maybe I'll just address it now real quick.
Yeah.
I think the point of view that people took away from that was that I diminished, the pain and the resonance in today's kind of socioeconomic context of human slavery, particularly recently in America. And that wasn't my intention at all.
Clearly not your intention, yeah.
What I'm trying to highlight is, first of all, human slavery has been around as long as humans have been around, right? For 10,000 years, back to ancient Egypt. The enslavement of humans, the removal of opportunity and freedom granted to every living being is certainly manifest in the form of human slavery, and we kind of take it as a very acute pain point. What I was highlighting is every year, over 100 billion land-based animals are killed, and they're born and put in chains and put in jails, and then murdered and eaten by humans as routine. And we don't lift our head up and recognize just how serious and how scaled this behavior is. The industrialization of this process is really abhorrent. And there's videos you can watch, and I think when you watch them, you'll recognize just how painful it is.
Delicious.
Yeah,
I knew it was coming. Chamath. Don't do it, Chamath.
And I do think that Chamath's voice in this is really the voice that's kept this from ever becoming an issue. Because it's not human, we don't kind of pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to highlight that there is something that is at such an extraordinary scale that we don't pay attention to, that one day we'll wake up and we'll be like, oh my God, how did we miss that?
Complete agreement with you, Freeberg. If you look at all life being precious and you say the life of a cow, the life of a dog, the life of a human, these are all lives. The scale of suffering is
these animals.
I don't weigh them equally. I'll just be honest with you guys.
These animals can problem solve. They can feel emotion. They can recognize.
Pigs,
they can recognize things happening to them and to their loved ones and their family members. And I think that in the context of that, to cause pain and suffering on those animals and on those creatures at the scale that we do is something that's just mind-blowing to me.
I think that's fair enough.
And I expect that one day we will wake up and be like, I cannot believe we allowed our society to do that. But I do think that we need to solve Chamath's problem, which is how do you make something that's friggin' delicious?
It's not
and how
a
do you make it cheaper?
Hold on a second. It's not a problem. My perspective is I understand where you're coming from. I respect your point of view, but here's my point of view, which is we evolved to superiority in an evolutionary process that was not preordained. Okay. And we are now in a position where we are allowed to consume things that we choose. Now, there is also a claim that you could make that, a tiger or a lion should not be attacking and killing a gazelle because that's causing suffering to the gazelle or blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, how we choose to go and consume the things that we need for sustenance is a choice that we can make. And there are probably better choices we can make over time. But at the end of the day, I think that this was a reasonable evolution of humanity and human ingenuity and intellect. And I don't feel guilty about that. I don't weigh the suffering of animals the same way I weigh the suffering of human beings. I don't.
And I would argue that when we were apes in the jungle and we didn't have the choice, I would wholeheartedly agree with you. But today, we are a people that do have the choice.
What choice do we have?
And it's because we have the choice to not eat meat and still survive and still be happy that we can make a better choice.
It doesn't taste good. Like there's a part of my soul. I'll just be very honest with you.
And I agree. And that's why I think we need to solve that problem. And that's why I believe
it's not a problem.
If you made an alternative for you that tasted good and was as affordable as the alternative, which is actually killing an animal, you would choose it. And we haven't given you that solution yet. And when I say we, I mean, call it the techno food people. But there is a tremendous amount of money going into this area. And we will devise artificially produced meat that will not be made by killing an animal, but will be made in a lab that looks and tastes identical.
Or a piece of sushi. Just give us a year.
You'll have a piece of sushi in 3 years. You will have. You will be able to go taste chicken next year. It'll be very, very expensive.
Okay.
But cell-based meat will be available.
Right, and then let's get
at a commercial scale within the next 5 to 10 years.
Our steak. That's really what it's about.
David, my commitment to you is I will do a taste test whenever you say what you call it. You pick the place, the time.
Totally.
I will show up, and if it's better, I will never eat meat again.
Okay, we're not ready. We're not ready for that, and that's a great commitment.
All right.
Yeah.
And I am similar in the commitment.
But in the meantime,
it's not taste. It's distasteful. But I will say, Friedberg, if you're going to have a party and it's only vegan, you need to put that on the invite, because I came thinking you were going to feed me.
JKL came to my party. There was no meat. He was really upset. He was going around my party being like, "What the hell is this? There's no meat in this party. What am I doing here?"
Can you make me a hamburger? The woman from wherever, like Napa, was like, "I've never touched meat in 30 years."
I made the most incredible ribeye on Christmas Eve. Oh my God.
Ribeye. All right, everybody. For the dictator himself, Chamath Palihapitiya, with great hair, touch of gray, never looked better. And the Sultan of Science, David Friedberg, and Tucker Carlson's bestie, GOP frontrunner, David Sachs, super spreading COVID.
Super spreading the truth.
Super spreading the truth. David Sachs from an undisclosed bestie hideaway, which we all know, but we won't say. I'm Jake Al, and we'll see you in 2022. Bye-bye. It's been a great year. Bye-bye.
We'll let your winners ride.
Rain Man David Sachs.
And instead, we open source it to the fans, and they've just gone crazy with it.
Love you, West. The Queen of Quinoa. Besties are back.
That is my dog taking a notice in your driveway.
Oh, man.
My haberdasher will meet me at Clinton. We should all just get a room and just have one big, huge orgy, because they're all just useless. It's like this sexual tension that they just need to release somehow. Wet your beak. Wet your beak.
Wet your beak.
We need to get merch.
Besties are back.